The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, The Hunger Games #0 by Suzanne Collins. The Calculated Alliance. Coriolanus Snow, with his sharp jawline and piercing blue eyes, stood poised in front of the mirror. His tall, lean figure was draped in a suit that whispered of wealth and status, the silver family crest pinned meticulously on his lapel. The air around him was charged with a mix of cologne and anticipation as he adjusted his tie with hands that betrayed a slight tremor. As he stepped out into the bustling square, the cacophony of the crowd enveloped him. The shrill cries of children, the murmurs of anxious parents, and the occasional outburst of laughter. The scent of roasting meat from nearby vendors clashed with the sterile odor of the city's stone. The sun bore down on his pale skin, a stark contrast to the cool shadow of his home. Coriolanus's mind was a whirlwind of strategy and ambition as he navigated through the throng of people. His heart raced, not from fear, but from the thrill of the game that was about to unfold. He was acutely aware of the weight of his family's legacy pressing down on his shoulders, each step forward a defiance of the possibility of failure. His gaze locked with Lucy Gray Baird's, and for a moment, the world seemed to still. Her defiant stance and the subtle curl of her lips spoke volumes of her resilience. As they conversed, Coriolanus felt an unexpected kinship, a sense of mutual understanding that went beyond mere calculation. He detected a spark of intrigue in her eyes, a hint that she too was aware of the delicate dance they were about to embark upon. "I'm sure you can," Coriolanus said, his voice low and persuasive as he locked eyes with hers. "But think about it, Lucy Gray. With my connections and your unique skills, we could be unstoppable. And who knows? We might just emerge victorious from this whole ordeal." For a moment, Lucy Gray seemed to consider his proposal, her gaze piercing through the din of the crowd. Then a mischievous glint appeared in her eye. "All right, Snow," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "You've got a deal. But don't think for a second that I'm going to let you manipulate me." Coriolanus grinned, feeling a sense of triumph wash over him. He had done it. He had formed an alliance with the most intriguing tribute of them all. As they shook hands, the deal was sealed, but both knew this was more than a mere handshake. It was a pact that could change their fates forever. In the days that followed, Coriolanus worked tirelessly to mentor Lucy Gray, teaching her survival skills and strategies to charm sponsors. They spent long hours discussing tactics, and with each passing day, Coriolanus found himself more captivated by her wit and resilience. The night before the games began, Coriolanus presented Lucy Gray with his mother's silver compact. For luck, he said, though he didn't believe in such things. The compact was adorned with intricate engravings, its surface reflecting the faint glow of the moon. Lucy Gray accepted it with a soft smile, tucking it away in her pocket. Little did Coriolanus know that compact would soon hold more than just powder. It would hold the poison that could turn the tide of the games. As the tributes took their places and the countdown to the games began, Coriolanus felt a surge of adrenaline coursing through his veins. This was it. The moment that could define his future. He locked eyes with Lucy Gray, his heart pounding in anticipation. The air was electric with tension, the silence between them speaking volumes of the unspoken understanding they shared. Suddenly, the rusty wheels turned as a dozen bales of hay burst out of the chute and rolled into a heap on the cage floor. The sound sent shivers down Coriola. A proposal with consequences. A proposal with consequences. Coriolanus Snow sat at his desk, his mind racing with ideas as he crafted a Hunger Games proposal. He was determined to make a name for himself in the capital, and this proposal could be his ticket to success. As he wrote, he envisioned the reactions of the game makers and the thrill of the audience. The proposal focused on two main aspects: providing tributes with food from sponsors and allowing capital citizens to officially wager on the victor. Coriolanus imagined the excitement of the crowd as they placed their bets, and the strategic alliances that would form between tributes and sponsors. As Coriolanus worked on his proposal, he began to strengthen his alliance with Lucy Gray Baird, a charismatic tribute who had caught his attention. He interacted with her in a friendly manner, encouraging others to show kindness to her. "Lucy Gray, you're doing wonderfully," Coriolanus said. "I'm confident you'll make it far in the games." Lucy Gray smiled, her eyes sparkling with gratitude. "Thank you, Coriolanus. You're very kind." Coriolanus smiled back, feeling a sense of relief wash over him. Maybe this alliance would be the key to his success in the capital. But as the days passed, the weight of his proposal's consequences grew heavier on Coriolanus's shoulders. He watched Clemencia's slow recovery with a mix of relief and dread, knowing that his actions had put her in harm's way. The guilt gnawed at him, even as he put on a brave face for the other mentors and tributes. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a golden glow over the capital, Coriolanus found himself at the training center, observing Lucy Gray. She was practicing her aim, each arrow hitting the target with deadly precision. He couldn't help but admire her strength and resilience. "Your aim is getting better every day," Coriolanus remarked, approaching her. Lucy Gray turned to him, a slight smile on her lips. "Thanks to your support," she replied. "I feel like I can take on anything in the arena." Coriolanus felt a surge of pride, but it was quickly tempered by the knowledge of what lay ahead. "Just remember, the arena is unpredictable. Stay alert," he cautioned. "I will," Lucy Gray assured him, her gaze steady and determined. As the night fell and the lights of the capital flickered on, Coriolanus couldn't shake the feeling that his proposal had set in motion events that could not be undone. He had wanted to make a difference, to stand out in the capital, but now he wondered if the price of ambition was too high. As he retreated into the shadows of the training center, Coriolanus knew that the games would test him just as much as they would the tributes. The true challenge was yet to come, and he would have to be ready for whatever the arena had in store. A symbol of luck and support. Coriolanus watched Lucy Gray Baird, the tribute from District 12, as she navigated the complexities of the capital. Their alliance, a strategic move in the deadly game they were both part of, had proven to be beneficial for both parties. As Lucy Gray entered the room, her presence seemed to brighten the somber atmosphere. Coriolanus, caught in a moment of reflection, considered the journey ahead. The Hunger Games were fast approaching, and with them the weight of expectations from all sides. He knew that the days to come would test their bond and the resilience of their carefully laid plans. Despite the challenges ahead, there was an unspoken understanding between them, a shared determination to overcome the odds. They exchanged a look of mutual respect before continuing with their preparations, each aware of the role they had to play in the spectacle that was the Hunger Games. As Lucy Gray left the room, Coriolanus felt a sense of anticipation for what was to come, knowing that their fates were now irrevocably intertwined. Coriolanus remained in the room long after Lucy Gray had departed, his thoughts a whirlwind of strategy and sentiment. The capital's opulence surrounded him, a stark contrast to the dire stakes of the games. He pondered over their next move, the alliances they would need to forge, and the enemies that lurked in the shadows. The days ahead promised to be a crucible, not just for Lucy Gray, but for him as well. His ambitions, once clear and unyielding, now seemed to be colored by the complexities of their relationship. As he prepared to leave the room, Coriolanus took one last look around, steeling himself for the tumultuous path that lay ahead. The game was on, and he was ready to play his part to the very end. Rescue and moral reckoning. The arena was a labyrinth of shadows and treacherous turns, each corner promising peril or providence. Coriolanus Snow moved with a stealth that belied his inner turmoil, his heart pounding against his chest like a drum of war. Amidst the ruins of what was once a grand coliseum, now reduced to a battlefield, He tread carefully on the uneven ground littered with debris from fallen structures that whispered tales of past glory. "Sejanus," he called softly, his voice barely a murmur against the cacophony of the games. Silence hung heavy for a moment before a faint rustling sound reached his ears. He paused, listening intently. The rustle grew louder, and a shadowy figure cautiously emerged from behind a crumbled wall. "Coriolanus," Sejanus breathed, his face a canvas of fear and relief. "I knew you'd come." The two young men, bound by more than just the chains of the academy, shared a look of understanding. They moved together through the maze of destruction, Coriolanus leading the way with a sense of urgency. His mind was a whirlwind of thoughts, torn between the desire to win and the compassion he felt for Lucy Gray. She was out there, somewhere in the arena, her life hanging in the balance of the games he had helped to orchestrate. "Lucy Gray," he whispered. "To name a prayer for safety." They edged closer to the boundary of the arena, where the air was thick with the tension of impending doom. Suddenly a clamor shattered the silence. "They're coming," Sejanus hissed, his voice tinged with panic. Coriolanus's eyes narrowed, his senses on high alert. "Quick! This way," he urged, guiding Sejanus through a narrow crevice concealed by the rubble. It was a path he had discovered days before, a secret passage that now served as their escape route. The sounds of their pursuers grew distant, but Coriolanus knew better than to assume safety. The arena was a living entity, its very soil imbued with malice and deceit. Each step was a calculated risk, a silent prayer that it wouldn't trigger some unseen horror. In a brief respite, Sejanus's gaze met Coriolanus's, filled with the tumult of gratitude and despair. "Why did you come for me?" he asked, his voice laden with the weight of unshed tears. Coriolanus's hand found a firm place on Sejanus's shoulder, anchoring him. "Because that's what friends do. We look out for each other," he said, his tone a bastion of resolve amidst the chaos of his thoughts. Yet the truth was more complex. The rescue was a gambit, a calculated move in the grand strategy of the games. Sejanus, like Lucy Gray, was a piece in his elaborate plan. But struggle for power and survival. As the evening sun cast its golden glow over the worn wooden buildings of District 12's Hob, Coriolanus Snow stood alongside Sejanus Plinth, his fellow peacekeeper, near the town square. The smell of freshly baked bread wafted from the nearby bakery, mingling with the sounds of miners returning from a long day's work. Sejanus's usually stoic expression was marred by concern, his eyes haunted as he spoke in hushed tones. "Coriolanus, I don't know how much longer I can keep doing this without losing myself," Sejanus confessed, his gaze darting around the bustling square. "The things we're asked to do, the way we treat these people, it's suffocating me." Coriolanus's attention remained fixed on a group of miners trudging towards their homes, their faces etched with exhaustion. "We have our orders," said Sejanus. "We must enforce the peace, no matter how distasteful it may seem." Sejanus's frustration simmered just below the surface. "I've been talking to Lil, the girl they've locked up in the capital base. She's just a kid, Coriolanus. She doesn't deserve this." A sudden commotion erupted near the entrance of the Hob, drawing their attention. A group of peacekeepers dragged a young man towards the gallows, his cries for mercy drowned out by the jeers of the crowd. Coriolanus's instincts kicked in as he recognized Sejanus's friend among the rebels being punished. "Come on," Coriolanus said, grabbing Sejanus's arm. "We need to maintain order before things escalate further." As they pushed through the crowd, Coriolanus took charge of the situation, his training and sense of responsibility driving him forward. "What's going on here?" he demanded, his voice firm but controlled. The burly peacekeeper in charge sneered at Coriolanus. "Just teaching this rebel a lesson, Snow. He was caught distributing rebel propaganda. Coriolanus's eyes narrowed. I wasn't aware that was a hanging offense. The peacekeeper shrugged. Makes no difference to me. I've got my orders. Coriolanus felt a surge of empathy for the young man and Lil, remembering their innocence and vulnerability. He knew he had to act. I'll take it from here, he said, his tone even. Release the prisoner to me. The peacekeeper hesitated before relenting, releasing the young man into Coriolanus's custody. As they walked away, Sejanus whispered, Thank you, Coriolanus. That was more than just procedure. Coriolanus remained silent, his mind racing with the implications of his actions. The weight of his uniform felt heavier than ever as he contemplated the fine line between duty and compassion. That night, instead of writing a letter, Coriolanus lay awake, the image of the young man's terrified face etched into his memory. And he realized that the true cost of their actions was measured in the currency of human suffering. Seeds of doubt and betrayal. Coriolanus Snow's footsteps echoed in the empty corridor as he made his way to the meeting point. The weight of his decision pressed heavily on his chest, a mix of anticipation and dread. Lucy Gray Baird awaited him in the darkness, her silhouette barely visible against the backdrop of District 12's stark landscape. Lucy, he whispered as he approached the dimly lit corner where she stood. Coriolanus. Lucy Gray's voice was a melody that both soothed and unnerved him. You came. We need to be careful, he cautioned, his eyes scanning the darkness for any sign of prying eyes. If we're seen together like this... I know, she interrupted, her hand reaching out to touch his. But we need each other, don't we? The question hung in the air, a reminder of their mutual dependence and the fragile nature of their alliance. It was then that Coriolanus realized the depth of his entanglement. His feelings for Lucy Gray had grown beyond a mere strategy for advancement in the Hunger Games. She had become a part of his own rebellion against the life he had been destined to lead. The cold night air couldn't chill the warmth that spread through him at her touch, a warmth that threatened to melt the ice he had built around his heart. Their conversation was cut short by the sound of footsteps. Coriolanus's hand instinctively reached for the weapon concealed in his coat, a reminder of the peacekeeper he was supposed to be. We should go, he said, urgency lacing his voice as he pulled away from Lucy Gray. The next day, Coriolanus faced Sejanus, his former friend and protégé. Their relationship had begun with Sejanus looking up to Coriolanus for guidance and support, but it had deteriorated as Sejanus became more involved with the rebels and their cause. Now Sejanus stood accused of treason, and Coriolanus was forced to confront the consequences of their differing choices. You don't understand what you're asking me to do, Coriolanus said, his voice barely above a whisper. I'm asking you to do what's right, Sejanus replied, his eyes pleading. Coriolanus turned away, torn between his loyalty to the capital and his sense of betrayal towards Sejanus. To betray Sejanus was to betray himself, but his loyalty to the capital was unwavering. The execution was a somber affair. The crowd's murmurs were a distant echo as Coriolanus watched, his expression stoic. As Sejanus's life was taken, the weight of Coriolanus's decision settled upon him, a crushing burden that threatened to consume him. Abandonment and lethal trap. Coriolanus Snow's departure from Lucy Gray Baird was a silent echo in his mind as he sat in the officers' school, his thoughts adrift. Despite his attempts to immerse himself in his studies, visions of Lucy Gray haunted him. He pondered her fate, the possibility of her eluding the capital's grasp, and the gnawing uncertainty of what might have been. Lucy Gray, with a heart steeled by betrayal, had not been idle. In the depths of the forest, she meticulously orchestrated her vengeance, employing the Jabberjays not just as bait but as messengers of her wrath. The birds, once symbols of surveillance, now served as harbingers of a trap uniquely designed for Coriolanus. The message that lured Coriolanus was succinct, its origin shrouded in mystery. "Meet me at the old oak tree in the forest. Come alone." As dusk embraced the woods, he ventured forth, drawn by a mix of fear and an inescapable curiosity. Under the moon's watchful eye, he navigated the forest's deceptive calm until the Jabberjay's chorus ceased, replaced by a silence that was both a warning and a welcome. It was there, amidst the stillness, that Lucy Gray materialized from the shadows, a specter of the promise they once shared. "Coriolanus," she declared, her voice a blend of scorn and sorrow. "You thought you could discard me, leave me to fend against the capital's wrath. But I refuse to be broken. I refuse to let you dictate my end." The sting of her words was a jolt to Coriolanus's conscience, awakening him to the stark reality of his choices. As Lucy Gray retreated into the night, leaving him to contemplate the solitude of his ambition, he understood the gravity of his betrayal. The trap set for him was more than physical. It was a testament to the perilous game he had played. A game of deceit and power where every move could be one's last. As the reality of his situation sank in, Coriolanus knew that the trap was not just a physical one laid by Lucy Gray, but also a metaphorical one set by his own ambitions. The Jabberjays, once mere tools in the capital's arsenal, now echoed the consequences of his betrayal, each call a reminder of the cost of his ascent. In the haunting silence that followed, Coriolanus Snow stood alone, a young man facing the wilderness within and without as the game's final player. The heavy emotional toll. Coriolanus sat alone, the day's events weighing heavily on his mind. The silence of the room was a stark contrast to the distant hum of the capital. Lost in thought, he didn't notice the hours slipping by. His mind replayed the encounter with Dr. Gall's scientists during the bird-trapping activity, the tension palpable. The memory of deceiving Dr. Gall loomed over him, a reminder of the delicate game he was playing. He was startled from his reverie by the realization that the silver compact, a gift from Tigress, was in his hand. It was a tangible connection to his past, to Tigress's mother, and to the bond they shared. It served as a silent testament to the choices he had made and the paths he had taken. The room felt colder as he contemplated his next move. The rebels' actions, Sejanus's involvement, and the girl Lil locked up in the capital base, all these thoughts swirled in his mind. The argument with Sejanus still echoed, their differing views on the rebellion clashing. Coriolanus's loyalty to the capital was unwavering, but the empathy Sejanus showed for the district's plight had planted a seed of doubt. Lucy Gray's absence was a gnawing concern. If she had uncovered his secrets, the consequences would be dire. He considered searching for her, not just for answers, but to ensure her safety. The idea of meeting her secretly in the seam near the woods took hold. He rationalized it as a necessary precaution, but deep down he knew it was more than that. Coriolanus gathered his thoughts and made his way to the mess hall, taking some ice as a small gift for Lucy Gray, though he wasn't sure if she had a freezer. The plan was set in motion, and he would soon find himself walking a thin line between loyalty and betrayal.